Welcome to the Scripture Future podcast. I'm Sonja Pagniano, and I'm thrilled to be here today speaking with Jay Phipps, a pharmacy owner, entrepreneur, and the force behind the Pharmacy Gladiator brand. Jay's journey from the hills of Appalachia to becoming a successful multi-pharmacy owner is truly inspiring. Jay, welcome to our show.
Hey, I'm super excited to be here. It's great to share my passion and the passion for the profession. As you mentioned, I'm a pharmacy owner in West Tennessee and super excited about the opportunities that pharmacy have now and excited to share my journey with you.
Excellent. So let's start at the very beginning with two things I think make your story really unique and compelling. You're a first generation college graduate from Appalachia. Take us back to those early days. What was it like pursuing a career in pharmacy coming from that background? And what initially inspired you to choose pharmacy in the first place?
I was just back in the hills of East Tennessee this past weekend for a Tennessee Pharmacists Association meeting, and it brought up a bunch of memories. And we really did grow up very humble. I would say humble would be the right word. My dad was hardworking, but my grandparents had been tenant farmers and worked on other
Okay.
farms. So we grew up very humble. We were tobacco farmers, so I actually worked in the fields and got my first job at 12 years old working on a
Oh my
farm.
gosh.
And then took a second job at 14 working construction in addition to working on the farm. So very much of a working blue collar family, first generation college graduate. I now have a cousin that is in pharmacy school, which will be the second one to pursue postgraduate education. So
Amazing.
that's exciting to have that. So really just grew up with the work ethic, and I think that has helped make me successful because while I'm not always the smartest, not always the most innovative, the most creative, I do find one of my core values is that I'm relentless, and so I'm going to outwork anybody there is out there. And I think that blue collar background really brought that up and gave the foundation for me to be successful in what I do.
Well, I think you should give yourself some credit because I've seen the stuff you've been accomplishing back to back to back. And so I think you're very smart, definitely smarter than me. So, um, thinking back to that time though, when you were first going to go for a college degree, like what did your family think about that?
My parents were amazingly supportive. They didn't have that opportunity, and so they really were supportive of me going and pursuing a graduate degree. We really didn't know what I was going to do. Wanted to be a
Okay.
biologist. I talked about maybe doing medicine, really wasn't sure. And one of the interesting things I think about my story is because we were I don't want poor is probably the right word. Humble. I use the word humble a lot. So I actually took a job at a factory working graveyard shift to help save money to go to college. So I helped build power steering gears for automobiles at
Okay.
night. Did chemistry and biology during the daytime. Um, and so saved up enough money as I went to a community college that I could go to the school that I really wanted to, which is Carson Newman University, and small liberal arts school in East Tennessee. Gave me a great opportunity and really, I guess, gave me that foundation because they were a very caring organization that the university poured into us. Um, and that gave me the opportunity, I think, to really give me the confidence to go outside of there. Um, I got a bachelor's degree. Really wasn't sure what I was going to do with myself, really, still then. And my family had been supportive, but they're like, all right, now it's time to go figure this out. And actually got a job in a hospital pharmacy
Okay.
and as a technician and really enjoyed that. And after a long trip to watch a University of Tennessee football bowl game with a bunch of pharmacy people, I came back and had decided I was going to apply to pharmacy school. And it was very interesting last minute decision, really, a few weeks before the deadline of pharmacy school. And I think something very interesting that I reflect back on often is I went to meet with one of the deans at one of the colleges, and like, how do I get in? And he looked at my GPA, he looked at, my background, my leadership, and he told me, he said, you'll never get in pharmacy school.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I said, "You mean this year?" And he says, "No, I don't think you'll ever get in. Your grades are average. You hadn't taken the PCAT, which was required at the time. You've got
Okay,
some
okay.
experience. You've got some experience, but you don't have any leadership experience, which is, I think, the key thing. The take. I think there's always something to take away from every challenging experience. And so, uh, and he was right. I had very little leadership experience. So I immediately left his office to go to get my transcript sent to the University of Tennessee,
Mm.
because I decided then I was going to go to pharmacy school. If
Okay.
nothing before then, once I was told I couldn't do it,
Yeah, once you're told no, you're like, okay, this is happening.
it was a done deal. So got that, moving forward. Um, but I took that advice, and as soon as I got in pharmacy school, I really got involved, in organizations. Ultimately, become an APHASP national president. Went from
Mhm.
no leadership experience to,
To
being
being
in
in charge, yeah, of
being in
leading
charge.
people.
Right. And that really changed me. I think sometimes you can be resentful when people give you direct feedback. And that was one of those, honestly, life-altering, things, because I wouldn't be here today if it hadn't have been for that interaction. That could have went either way. I could have went back in a hole and hidden, or I could go and
Well, and
face
how brave
person.
of you, though, to even ask the question. There are a
Mm.
lot of people today, they don't even ask. They don't say, like, do you think like this will work for me? They just think
Right.
it's not going to work. And so when people take the time to ask the question, and then even when they're told no, they make it happen.
Right.
That's the kind of people we need in this industry. We need the
Absolutely.
go-getters. We need the gladiators, as you call it,
Yeah.
to kind of move things forward and keep things driving for the profession. So I think it's remarkable what all you've overcome, how much you've accomplished. And I think your story probably resonates with other people. I know even for myself, obviously not having done pharmacy school or anything, I had a similar experience where I was like, well, I worked two jobs like through high school. Like I did all this work and it
Wow.
didn't matter because it was like you didn't participate in these organizations. You didn't have any kind of leadership things you were part of. Like, what do you have to show for that? And it's like, it's a legitimate question, but
Right.
it's also like, how am I supposed to do that and work this much? And it's kind of like in our one conversation we had on our podcast. If you want it, you'll make the time for it. Like you'll figure it out.
Mm.
And so I do think there is some of that. It's
Yeah.
how can you overcome your obstacles and still drive things forward?
Absolutely.
So over time, I know you've developed a really strong online presence. And I have to ask you about this Pharmacy Gladiator concept. I think that's such a distinctive brand name. What gave you the courage to put yourself out there like that online? And how did you come up with the concept itself?
Great question. So I spent a lot of time trying to think about, like, what's a differentiator in pharmacies? What are we really doing? And I actually go back to Carson Newman, and when I decided I was going to apply to, pharmacy school, I met with, Dr. Patsy Boyce, was one of my professors, and I said, I think I'm going to go pharmacy school. She said, you will be good for the profession. Pharmacy needs people like you. And, I've always been just a little different than most pharmacists. I don't think like most pharmacists. Um, I think much like most NCPA members, which we're not just pharmacists, we're entrepreneurs at
Right.
NCPA, and that's really the differentiator. I believe is that entrepreneurial mindset. So I've been trying to think, how do you like portray, how do you explain what we really do? And at 2 in the morning, I woke up and went, Pharmacy Gladiator, that's it. Like,
At two in the
and
morning?
at 2 in the morning,
Oh
my
my
my,
God.
and I'll probably share another story later about 2 in the morning. 2 in the morning is literally, that's my most creative time, when you're sleeping and you're not letting your busy thoughts cloud
Okay.
your mind, and let your brain go to work. And I woke up into Pharmacy Gladiator. So literally at 2 in the morning, I bought pharmacygladiator.com website, Pharmacy Gladiator podcast, .com. Like, I mean, I was all
You went
in.
all in, yeah.
Yeah. And it's really been interesting because I think pharmacists are out there conquering the coliseums in their communities. We're battling for patients, we're battling for access, we're battling for our profession, and I think sometimes we're seen as somewhat timid. A gladiator is the opposite of what many people think of as pharmacists. I don't believe that. I think most pharmacists are out there really fighting for their patients and their profession. And so to me, it seems a little alter ego, I guess. But to me, that's really what's on the inside of most of us as pharmacists, whether you're actually in community practice or health systems or wherever you practice. I think most of us have that inner gladiator, especially in community practice. I think it really stands out on what we do. And so I've taken that, and I'll be honest, it was scary to first have a social media presence.
Okay.
I think I created a LinkedIn account about 3 years ago, so still
So still
new,
pretty new, yeah.
interesting. It's still new. I had made my first video, which took me about 115 takes before I got it done. A 2 years ago or so, a little over 2 years ago. And now I'm consistently making videos and trying to elevate and inspire other pharmacists to do great things. And they are. And I think you want to shed light on that. You really want to talk about the great things that pharmacists are doing.
Yeah.
Uh, and so when I started that, it came down when I started that social media presence, it was about, there was so much negativity in the profession. We felt like we were overwhelmed. DIRs were bad, reimbursement was terrible, and you could go to a meeting and it was all these bad things that we think about. And really the Gladiator brand has evolved somewhat over the last couple of
Okay.
years because my biggest passion is speaking about fear and how we overcome fear.
Right.
And so
You
the
do talk
and
about that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really that when I'm at home at night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, I'm researching fear and how do we
Okay.
overcome fear? And really gladiators, interestingly enough, were slaves, right, to the Roman
Right.
Empire. Well, I think most people are slaves to their fear.
Okay.
What are we overwhelmed with? Do we have difficult conversations? Do we avoid, you know, how many people want to be an entrepreneur and don't take that step or write a book or change jobs, have a difficult conversation? And so I started really trying to get that out. And during the time that I started having a social media presence, and we were in such a fearful state in the profession that many people don't realize, but your amygdala, the part that controls your fear, keeps you from innovating. It pulls the resources from your prefrontal cortex, the front of your brain that does the innovation and long-term planning,
Mhm.
and you can't do that while
Right.
you're in a fearful state. And so it really has evolved, and it's been a challenge for me to put myself out there because some are going to like it, some are not, and you just have to be willing to lay it out there and overcome fear. Every time I get ready to shoot a video or to give a talk, you have to be positive and think there's somebody out there that you're going to relate to, and you tell your story. And I've been got extremely positive feedback. Been really excited about it. Still a little nervous sometimes. You start wondering about when you lay yourself out there for the world to see. It's a little challenging, but this past weekend I went to a Tennessee Pharmacists Association meeting. Three people that I really didn't know came up to me and started talking about how fear was important to them and how it was constraining them. They wanted career changes, but were
Okay.
afraid to. They were afraid to do it. They didn't want to leave work at the comfort of their own current situation. And I think that's really where that Pharmacy Gladiator has evolved to, and it's really worked out to be perfect for me, and trying to get that out there to get people to reach their potential and ultimately reach their destiny.
I think it's a really good message, especially like you said, in a time where there's so much impacting pharmacy. It's all in our news feeds. It's in
Oh
the
yeah.
work you guys are doing every day. You see it, you see the numbers, you see what's happening to your patients. I mean, you cannot run away from it.
No, no, no. And interestingly enough, in fear, there's most people think fight or flight. There's actually three responses. There's a study out of Stanford to show that you either fight it, you run from it, but the least stressful state is to freeze and do nothing. Your heart rate's down, less. You're not don't have as much stress, and so many people have frozen. They just freeze and just sit there and let it happen to you. And I think the ones that are stand up and face it head on are the ones that are going to be successful. And whether you're in pharmacy or any other profession, I think
Right.
you really have to, when you have a challenge, you have to be like a buffalo and walk into the storm instead of away from the storm.
But it's cold and
It
wet.
is. It is
It's
exactly.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
It is uncomfortable. And I tell our team, at least on a weekly basis, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable if you want to
Yes,
grow. If you want to
absolutely.
innovate, if you want to be a better person, and you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And I think that's the one thing that I think a lot of times people have challenges with is they don't like to be uncomfortable. Me either. But the more you do it, the more you get used to it, and the better you respond to it.
Yeah, it's like a muscle.
It
You
is,
got to
yeah,
grow it and practice it. Otherwise, it'll
absolutely.
get weaker and weaker and it won't work anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I actually talk about the fear muscle all the time because I think there's a
Okay.
fear muscle. It's really interesting. You say that because
Yeah,
it's really this exact same thing. The more that you do something that you're uncomfortable with, you grow that muscle just like you go to the gym to grow a
exactly.
set
It's the
of
same.
biceps or quads. It's the exact same process.
So, how has your online presence impacted your business? You talked about people approaching you at the Tennessee Pharmacists Association meeting. Have there been other areas where it's impacted you as well?
Absolutely. It's really developed a lot of relationships. And I can't tell you how many times I go to a meeting and people don't remember my name, but they're like, "You're the
Okay.
Pharmacy Gladiator." I stopped at I was at Red Cell Connect not long ago and was talking to somebody, and we couldn't carry on the conversation. I bet not to say it braggingly, but I bet there were 10 people in a row. They're like, "Hey, you're the Pharmacy Gladiator, right?" And so it really has built that network and has gotten me out there. And then that's allowed me to honestly help other people, I think, but it's also helped me because then you make those connections and it breaks down that barrier. Because even if you see somebody on social media, you feel like you know them.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
and you want to I want to be authentic. I think most people out there, the majority want to be authentic. And if you're that way, then it breaks down that barrier and people that you wouldn't speak to before, you will. And so that's really given me I think some great opportunities to make relationships. I'm a big relationship builder. I want to know who people are. I want to know about them. And people then approach me versus me having to approach
Sure.
them,
It's
which is
like
which
a pre-icebreaker.
it is because they're like, hey, I was I don't remember where about 6 to 8 months ago at a conference, and a pharmacy student came up to me and he said, "That smile is real." That's how he started the conversation, and I went,
Aw.
yeah, and I'm like, because I guess he's seen me on social media, and I've got a big smile on my face most of the time. And he said, I didn't know if you were just faking that for pictures or if you really did smile. And so it's really good, but you do have that comfort. If he hadn't seen me on social media, would have never had that opportunity to have that
Speaking of growth,
conversation.
let's
Great
talk
young man.
about numbers and growth related to your pharmacies. So, how many pharmacies do you own now? And how did you make the transition from owning one to multiple?
Great question. Currently, I own four, yeah, all in Middle and West Tennessee. I actually just recently bought a new building.
Oh,
So we're going to
congrats.
have number five in 2026. And I'll do it in chronological order. I graduated pharmacy school. I did a residency in drug information and pharmacotherapy. I'm probably the only independent pharmacy owner in the world that did a drug information residency and
Right.
opened a
I've never
pharmacy.
heard of
That's
that.
not, yeah, that's not, those, I am an abnormal drug information pharmacist. Most of those, they're very reserved and quiet, and
Okay.
I am neither of those. Um, and but during my residency, I got a phone call because I got involved in as a student in APHA, and somebody called me and said, "Hey, we're opening a pharmacy. Would you like to work for us?" And I said, no, but I would consider being a partner. And why I said that, I have no idea because again, we were poor, right? We didn't have much,
Yeah,
and
sure,
and, and
sure.
my parents never wanted to own anything or owned a business, and so anyway, my residency project ended up be opening up a community pharmacy, and so 25 years ago, this past June, we opened up the my first pharmacy with two partners, two great guys, and we saw within the first year or so that we had a little different visions. Great, like I said, great people, and so we split ways as partnership, and I've been on my own since.
Okay.
Um, and and really, it was me trying to figure out how to do that. And when you open a pharmacy, I had two mortgages, student loans. You go to the bank and you borrow money from the bank to pay yourself to pay your two mortgages. It's you really don't want to go to Shark Tank and talk about that business model.
No, no, probably not.
It's not
Probably wouldn't work
ideal.
so good.
No, I would hate to say what Mark Cuban and Mr. Wonderful would say about that. And I'll be candid, and I don't want to discourage anybody, but going from one to two was more difficult than going from two to four.
Sounds like having
It's
kids. What?
right.
Sounds the
It's
same.
exactly it is because you most of us are really good at being tactical. We're good on the
Mhm.
counter. Being good on the counter, being good with patients is different than managing a business and being an entrepreneur. And I'll speak on that word entrepreneur for just a second, which
Yeah.
is that I never owned that word until I went back at 50 years old. I know I don't look like I'm 50 years old, but I am 50. I went back and got my MBA at 50
Okay.
um, from University of Indiana. And that's the first time I owned the word entrepreneur. I never thought about it. I'm just a pharmacy owner. No, we're not just pharmacy owners. We are changing the business model. We're entrepreneurs and we're doing new things. And and it's just I think that transition and mindset is challenging was for me. And as I talk to other people, I think it can be. So once I figure out how you scale that, how you manage people, and I'm such a better leader, I believe now than I was then because I was a really good pharmacist. I could fill prescriptions really fast. I could do all those things, but I didn't know how to manage things that were outside my control. And that was the most challenging part. And then you learn to scale those things. You get better and you put systems in place and you give people some flexibility to be themselves, but you also give
Hmm.
them a structure in which they, you know,
Thrive, probably. Yeah.
and you learn that you have to step back and let people, you don't want to macromanage things. You don't want
Right. You want to
to
trust your employees. You hired them to do a job.
if people aren't successful, most of the time it's my fault because I didn't give them the tools. And
Right.
did I give
Exactly.
them the training? Sometimes you have to do some training and up level people. And so now, we operate four pharmacies, or I operate four pharmacies, and I also have an organization called Phipps Care, where pharmacists are in a clinic in our
Oh,
pharmacy
okay.
providing weight loss services. We're doing test to treat, flu, strep, COVID, UTIs. We're also doing helping manage erectile dysfunction in men. So that's another business that we have. And now I'm also an insurance agent. So I have a company called Health Insurance Solutions, in which we have pharmacy technicians and nurses and pharmacists that are doing helping people select their Medicare Part D plans. And so a lot of balls in the air. But to me, that's the exciting part of it. And if I hadn't learned how to scale early, I don't think we could do that now. But you have to be able to be comfortable stepping back and as you said, trusting people to reach the goals that you all set together, and then step back and give them feedback though if they need it. Be direct about it, not just assume they know everything, and help them really reach their potential.
So how do you identify those people for your businesses to kind of help move things along? Like what are some of the qualities you see in people that have really been helpful?
That's a podcast in itself. The the number one thing I look for is problem solving.
Okay.
I mean that's it, without a doubt. Because if you can solve a problem, you don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to have all the ideas. But if you can problem solve, That's the people I want on my team. I want people that are, and so
Okay.
we have a very systematic approach to hiring people now. Standardized questions, for technicians. We have a math test to see where they're at. It's not a yes or no we hire them, but it's, hey, we want to know where your skill set really is. Are you able to be in the compounding lab or not able to be in the compounding lab without training? And so we become very systematic. I let uh, technicians interview technicians.
Oh,
Uh,
smart. Yeah.
so it doesn't really matter what I think. I could think you were the greatest member of, to come on our team, but if the team doesn't think that, it doesn't really
Right.
matter what I think.
Right. Because
You
they're
want
going to be
that
around that person all the time.
exactly. And I've learned even recently, sometimes you make decisions and you don't follow that mindset, that structure you put in place, and it's like it backfires. So I really have opened up, trying to get the whole team involved in the hiring process, and it's hard. Hiring the right people. It's all about culture. You know, not everybody fits in our culture. In our culture, we innovate. We're problem solvers. We're solution focused. We want to fail fast. We
Okay.
want to. We don't want something to drag out for a year
Right.
when we can find out in a week. And
Sure.
and
Sure.
it's hard to find that. You have to get them. You have to get the right people on your bus and then put in the right seat on the bus. And then there's times you need them to put them on somebody else's bus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always hard. It goes back to fear. Like
Yeah.
I used to not let people go. Now you learn it's better for them to be on the right bus than your bus just because it's convenient or it's difficult to not let them be on your bus.
Exactly. Yeah. Finding comfort in uncomfortable conversation.
Absolutely, which I think is really, as the research I've done, and I do surveys, that's it, that avoiding conflict, including difficult conversations for pharmacists especially, it just scares them to death. Like we won't want to have those hard conversations. The more you do it, the better it gets. It's never easy, but it does get better. And you're right. Just trying to find the right people for the right culture. To me, that's going to be paramount to your success.
Well,
If you get the right people.
speaking of relationship building, I noticed the NCPA sign behind you and the Tennessee
Yeah.
Pharmacists Association. I know you're a member of both of those. So for pharmacists listening to who might be on the fence about joining or rejoining an organization like an association, what value do you get from being part of an organization like an association?
The associations, provide, I think, a great value when you step back when you look at what they give you. But then my greatest personal benefit is the mastermind of other like-minded professionals.
Okay.
And that's where the real value. Now, NCPA and TPA both do great jobs of having resources and finding out what we need. And the thing that stretches across all the organizations is you get those people together and you build those relationships that you're never going to do when you're in your pharmacy all day long.
Mm-hmm.
How often now? I, on a regular basis, which drives my family a little crazy sometimes. I'll be driving down the road and go, oh, independent pharmacy. I pull in and I'll walk in and
Oh,
talk
and
to them.
you'll stop by and say hi, kind
I
of
just
thing.
stopped by exactly. When we're on vacation, we did the same thing. We went to Oregon recently, and we stop and visit pharmacies when we're on the coast. Actually visited one of Jeff Harrell's stores, NCPA
Okay,
president,
sure.
the Quick and a great opportunity to go and see what people are doing. But most people don't do that. Most people are in their box, and I think the associations give us an opportunity to develop those relationships and really solve problems. We're really missing out on that. We don't have to be, even if you're a single store owner in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, you don't have to be on an island.
Right,
You're
right.
on an
No,
island.
exactly.
You're choosing not to wave down the ship as it goes by to
Hmm.
rescue you. You can get help, and I think sometimes we don't take advantage of that. Um, and the more that you'll look for it, the solutions are there. You just have to get out of your box to go find them.
Yeah, I think as a foundation, that's something that we see as super important is reminding people of the value of community, like the
Yeah.
community of community
Right.
pharmacy, so to
Right.
speak. I think we might have. regained a lot of that during COVID, but I think we also lost some of that
I
because
agree.
we were also distanced from each other. And so I think reminding people of the value of organizations, of the value of relationship building, of
Mhm.
what it means to bring a group of diverse, different mindsets and things into a room so that you can go and talk and learn about new things that you aren't necessarily going to find out on the internet. Through
Right.
organic conversation, you learn so
Hmm.
much more.
I agree. I
So
agree
I
100%.
think you're spot on with that stuff.
I'd like to add, in my career, I watched it evolve. When I first started, 25 years ago, pharmacists across the country would share, but pharmacists that were close didn't necessarily share.
Oh, interesting.
What I have watched is really because of the challenges that the profession has faced, we've become unified.
Mm,
We have this big enemy, PBMs, to be very candid, right? It's
right.
it's a giant elephant in the room, um, and that has brought us together. I think in a different way, which is great. Not that we have that enemy, but that we have unified, and we, to me, we converse and will share even locally that we would probably never have done 20 years ago. But now we realize that we are stronger together, and that's really what NCPA does for us.
What's the biggest mistake that you see new pharmacy owners make?
I think pharmacists are perfectionists. One of the biggest fears we have is we want to be perfectionists. And I'm a recovering perfectionist myself. I get it.
Well, it's
But you
important when it comes to medicine,
Yes,
right?
right, right. Well,
But
it does.
with
It,
other
it draws
things,
in, yeah, it does draw in that personality of right drug, right patient, right dose, right doc. I get that. But on the entrepreneurial side, you need to be able to be okay knowing it's not always going to be perfect. You're never going to have all the data. Make a decision. If it's wrong, pull the plug. I had a pharmacy years ago that I left open for a long time. I kept going, it'll be better next year. It'll be better next year.
okay,
And still, I should have said, all right, it's just not the right place. I made a bad decision. But you get sunk cost in it. You're like, oh, I've put all this time and money in it. I've got to keep
yeah,
going.
you feel bought in and committed to your mistake.
Yes, exactly right. Which really, and that fear of letting go and stepping back, it can be overwhelming. So I think the one thing is, I guess the number one advice I'd give new pharmacists, new pharmacy owners is one, quit thinking about it and start and do it. Take action. We think about it forever. Quit thinking about it, do it. And then be okay that not every step's going to be right. You don't have to have everything perfect the first time. Go fail fast, figure it out, make it better, and improve with every day you go into work, or every week, and every month, and then that'll really make you successful, I believe. Rather than thinking you've got to have it perfectly laid out on the beginning, and then if it doesn't work out that way, you're disappointed. Well, be okay that it's going to be a better at the end than what you think it'll be. You just can't see where it's going to be
Right.
exactly yet.
And it's also okay if you get to that place where you realize you failed to ask for help. Like to your point, there are thousands of pharmacy owners
All
across the
right.
country who are willing to pick up a phone or send an email or whatever and help out. So I think that's also good to remember.
I do too. Yeah, you're really not on your own, and most of us, 99% of pharmacists are going to be. If you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I don't know you, but I need help with this," they're going to say, "All right, what do you need help with?" And they're going to give you everything. They'll lay it out and give you all the help that you could ever need. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable enough to ask for help. Early in my career, I was not. Now I'm like, there's more that I don't know than I know,
Mhm.
and it's okay. So why not go to somebody else that knows more than I do about a subject?
Well, Jay, this has been fantastic. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? Maybe something we didn't cover that you think is important for people to know?
I have never been more excited about the profession of pharmacy than I have now. 25 years in it, and there's all this negativity that we talk about. But I'll be honest, I feel like the profession is a volcano that's got the steam, got the pressure building up in it, and it's about to explode. So I really think look for the positives. There's a lot of positives out there. We're able to do things from a practice setting and in most states that we've not been able to do in the past. We're wired to look for the negative, and that's okay, but there's much more positive out there. We just have to remain relentless. I wear a wristband that says Pharmacy Gladiators are passionate and relentless. You got to remember what your passion is. Why are you here? What's your purpose? And then how do you pursue that purpose every day? And I think you do it by remaining relentless. And that does allow us to conquer the coliseums in our own communities.
And then one more question before we go. So thank you for being a donor of the NCPA Foundation. What do you think the foundation can do to help drive innovation and sustainability in community pharmacy?
I think the foundation, number one, are great listeners. Like you really are great listeners to what's going, because sometimes people in an office can have great ideas. Um, but I think the best ideas are when you listen and then you apply your wisdom to that and you bring out the best of both worlds of what's boots on the ground and what's creative. And I think the foundation brings that creativity for implementation. And so I think we just need to continue to work together, to collaborate, to make sure that pharmacists, when they have ideas, go to the foundation and talk to them, talk to
Yeah.
you about it, and lay those ideas out. And then the foundation to continue to support those ideas so we can move the profession forward.
Well, I think you said that beautifully. And I know I'm inspired every time you talk about being passionate and being relentless. And I try to apply that to our work here at the foundation as well. So, Jay Phipps, the pharmacy gladiator himself. Jay, where can people find you online and connect with you?
Well, I have a website, pharmacygladiator.com. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram at Dr. Jay Phipps on all those platforms. And I'd love to connect with people there. Love to help. I enjoy working with teams and helping build and really giving keynote speeches about fear and how you overcome fear to be successful. So love for people to connect and love to make that connection, build that relationship.
Excellent. That is great feedback. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it very much.